ओके। Yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you? Good morning, those on Zoom too. Good morning.
Morning.
We'll go ahead and get started. The class usually can go for about an hour and a half, and we have a hard stop. I got 45 minutes to 50 minutes, so you're still feel free to ask questions that you guys have. We'll go through everything. You may have been through this before. There's a few changes, and feel free to ask questions, like I said, as we go, and also try to stay away from very, very specific questions. If you have very specific questions pertaining to a transaction or a deal that you have pending or coming up or whatever, ask me that after class. But if it pertains to the slide that we're on, feel free to ask, unmute yourself, just talk. Or those of you that are in the classroom can go ahead and just talk. So, all right, so this class is really what to know about real estate. It's all the things that you didn't learn in real estate school. It is just the things that you need to know in order to help you sell successfully and or get paid successfully or stay out of real estate jail in the MLS. So we'll go ahead and get started here. All right, so our over here. As long as everybody on Zoom can see. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how you guys do business, because there are different ways. You can do business as your individual person, which your license says that that's who you are, so you're welcome to do that. But I will say it's sometimes advantageous for you to create an LLC and get paid under the name of your LLC. So for example, I get paid under Cosgrove Sales LLC. I have a different identification number than my social security number, and that's what my 1099 comes in. Now, the benefits of doing that are, of course, anything that I buy under my company, I can write off. You can still do that as an individual person, but the difference is I pay myself a weekly paycheck out of that account and take taxes out. So that helps me reduce the amount of self-employment tax that I have to pay. And also you're considered a small business. And so in the state of Ohio, there is no small business tax on up to $200,000 worth of income. So you can really save yourself some money. Now, I've been told that you're considered a small business as a real estate agent, even if you just use your social security number, but talk to your tax preparer and make sure they understand that. Because not all tax preparers understand how real estate works, or that you would be considered a small business. So find somebody that you know, like, and trust that has answers for you when it comes to your taxes. But there are definitely incentives for you to do that. And if you invest in RPAC, your RPAC dollars help to keep that in the state of Ohio from small businesses having to pay that extra tax. But keep a record of your miles, because you're going to need that at the end of the year. Keep a record of any interest you may have paid on your car. Keep a record of your insurance costs, things like that, because those are all write-offs up to a certain amount, and your tax preparer will know what to write off.
Up to what amount?
I believe it's up to $200,000 worth of income. You're considered a small business and you don't pay any state income tax. Yep. So you can go to legalzoom.com and create an LLC. You can have an attorney do it. It's really up to you. The cost is pretty minimal doing it even online through LegalZoom. So, all right. Is there anything in the chat? Because I see, okay. I saw like 3 things. Okay. All right. Then we'll talk a little bit about advertising. So of course, we want to brand ourselves. We all want to advertise. But Ohio license law does require that you have the brokerage name in all of your advertising. And that means the brokerage name is Legacy Group Realty. Our brokerage name is, our DBA is Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. But our legal name, as far as the state of Ohio is concerned, is Legacy Group Realty. That means that's what you have to advertise, is Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. And not only do you have to advertise, but your name must be, or the brokerage name rather, has to be equal to or more prominent than your name. So on the next slide, I have some examples, but also if you're a team, the same rules apply. So if I'm the Rich Cosgrove team, then that means that my team logo or name, Rich Cosgrove team or group, cannot exceed the prominence of Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. Okay. And then any teams formed after July of 2021, you must include the word team or group if you're forming a team or group. So for example, you can see that Jose is Jose Medina and Associates. You can no longer use the word associates. Those were grandfathered in, but you cannot create a team or a group without using the word team or group. So like we had Nick Rock, when he came over from EXP, he named himself Nick Rock and Company Real Estate Group. So he does comply, even though it's Nick Rock and Company. There is nothing that says that it can't be company, but I would have said, hey, you can't just use that. But the fact that he put real estate group, that makes it okay because he is compliant with that. What the division wants to make sure is that these teams or teams period are getting so large that unfortunately it looks like a very big misrepresentation to the public. It's almost like they're their own brokerage. So if he was just Nick Rock and Company, somebody might think that's his own brokerage, and that's not. It's Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. And then the full broker's name must be in all advertising or solicitations that you do. So no matter what you do, if it's a pen, a scratch piece of paper, or a notebook paper that you're having printed and you're gonna solicit with those, if it's your business card, if it is a paperclip, if it's a t-shirt, it does not matter what it is, it has to have the name of Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty, and the prominence rules do apply. Okay, so when I say what is our brokerage name, it is the last one, which is Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. You can't just use Keller Williams, and you can't just use Legacy Group Realty. If we weren't a Keller Williams franchise, you could just use Legacy Group Realty, but we are a franchise. All right, so going back to that, what do I mean by all advertising? Exactly what you see on here. It doesn't matter if it's water bottles, pens, business cards, no matter what you have to have the brokerage name on it, and the equal prominence rule does apply. And then, so I asked you, based on what I just said, which one of these do you feel is the correct answer?
Second one down on this side.
So the bottom on the left, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and why is that one correct?
It has the full brokerage name and your name is not bigger than
Perfect.
the brokerage name.
Yep, the broker's name is larger than my name, and I have the full Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. So that's good, so that's what something should look like. Now, there would be nothing wrong if my name was equal to that prominence. But it's always safer to have it a little bit different. And when this is a very easy illustration because you can see that my name is smaller. But when we say equal prominence, it doesn't just mean size, it means placement on whatever it is that you've got. So, if you have on the back of a t-shirt, Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty, but on the front of it, it has your name plastered hugely on it, and I'm gonna see that name first, that does not follow the equal prominence rule. Okay, so cursive writing, let's say, I've got my name in cursive, but Legacy Group Realty is like this with the logo. But I have the logo down towards the bottom right of my Facebook page or whatever. If the first thing that you see when you see something is the agent's name or team name, that would not be compliant with the rules. All right, so advertising a listing. Listings are very far and few between anymore, so everybody wants to advertise them. One of the first things you have to ask is the listing yours? Before you advertise it, is the listing actually yours? If the answer is no, then you have to get permission in writing from the principal broker at that company where that listing belongs. So if I have a friend over at, let's just say, Howard Hanna, and I say, hey, can I go ahead and advertise your listing? The answer is no, unless I get the broker's permission, not the agent's permission. So it has to be the broker's permission. And if it belongs to Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty, I, as the broker, have no problem with you advertising all of our listings if that's what you want to do on Facebook. However, as a courtesy, I would say don't do that unless you ask the listing agent first if you can do that, because they may not want you marketing their property for sale on your Facebook site because maybe they're trying to drive all the traffic to a specific site of theirs, or the seller doesn't want confusion that you're representing them when really you're not. So you always have to make sure that you're giving credit to whoever listing it is. So if I got permission from Howard Hanna, then I would have to say listing credit belongs to whoever the agent is and at Howard Hanna. Okay. And then just make sure if you do get those permissions, it is from the principal broker in writing, and the same thing is true for the agent. If it's a Keller Williams Legacy Group agent, get it in writing, text message, email, something that says that they gave you permission to advertise it. Okay. If you're sending anything out for return addresses, you cannot use your own personal address at your residence. So even if you're sending out holiday cards, let's say, for example, and you're like, oh, I just want to put my return address on it because I'm sending them personally from my house. The answer is no. Any correspondence that you send out on behalf of your real estate advertising must comply with having a return address that is on file with the Division of Real Estate, which these are the four that you can use that are open to all of our offices. Technically, you could use Stephanie Webb's in Mansfield. I don't recommend that, and she probably wouldn't appreciate using that. And the same thing with Jose's team out of North Canton. They are both licensed under our brokerage and they are legal addresses that you could use. I don't think that you would use them, but the 4 that you see above are all 4 that you can use. Social media rules, there's so many things about social media anymore that people are just kind of taking liberties all the time. So one thing you need to be aware of is on Facebook, and I really don't know so much about YouTube or some of the other platforms, but basically it's called a one-click rule. Anytime that you're advertising something on social media, on any of the platforms, if you don't have the brokerage name and your name in the advertising, but if I click on the link that you provided or a picture that you provided, something in that post, and it takes me to the MLS page where all the brokerage information is, or it takes me to your personal website where the brokerage information is, or it takes me to your Facebook page that's your business Facebook page. As long as I can get there by one click and it provides all the information for the prominence rule, the brokerage name, the team name, or your agent name, then you're compliant. But if I have to go more than one click, you are not compliant, and I don't recommend ever advertising that way. The best thing to do if you're advertising on Facebook is open up a business profile for yourself. I mean, so if it's Scott Killy Team or Group or whatever, then you would go ahead and have your Facebook as Killy Team or Killy Group, Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. You would post anything on that page. You can share it then to your personal page, because when I click on that, when it's on your personal page, it's going to take me back to your business page, and that's what you want. So you just have to make sure it's that one click. We'll talk a little bit about MLS. Things are constantly changing with the MLS. I'll try and keep you as up to date as I possibly can, but one of the things that you need to be aware of here at KWLG is that when you're entering a new listing, it is your responsibility to enter the new listing. We do not have office staff or admins that do that. You might have an admin that does that, and that's fine, but it is your responsibility to do that. The status changes have to be done within 48 hours. And what is a status change? A status change is under contract allow showings, under contract do not allow showings, or it could be temporarily off the market. It could be a withdrawal with or without release, but those have to be done within 48 hours. Now, the federal holidays and weekends don't count as part of that, but I would tell you as a good rule of thumb, just follow the 48 hours, whether it's a holiday or a weekend anyway, so that you keep yourself out of real estate jail. And when I say real estate jail, nobody's coming to cart you off, but you can't get a fine, and you don't want that. Interestingly enough, the under contract allow showings or under contract no showings is not up to the agent. It's not up to you to decide whether or not you want showings on the property. It's up to the seller. You should have a conversation with the seller on whether or not they want showings or don't want showings. Most agents don't give a backup offer, even if it is under contract allow showings, but you never know. They could if it was a very hot property. And if you put it under contract no showings, that means nobody can show it. That means not even you can show it. So if you have something under contract, no showings, and let's say all of a sudden you know that the deal is falling apart, but you don't have it as under contract allow showings or active, even you can't show your own listing when it's under contract no showings. So you've got to be very careful with that. I've seen where agents know a deal is falling apart, they go ahead and show it on their behalf, and then they tell everybody else, well, you can't show it because it's not active yet, or it's not allow showings. I've also seen it to where sellers are like, well, how come I haven't seen any backup offers on my house, or it hasn't been shown? Well, because I marked it under contract, no showings. Did you ask me first? So make sure it's not your decision, it's the seller's decision. Scott?
What do you do when you have, it's not allowing showings, but then the owner, the seller, wants to show it to their friend?
I mean, a seller is allowed to do whatever they want with their property. If the seller is gonna bring in their friend and show them the house, I mean, it wouldn't even be considered a showing. It could be, hey, come over for dinner. You know, you can't stop that from happening. That situation might happen 1 out of, I don't know, maybe 1,000 or more. Yeah,
I didn't know.
I can't imagine, as long as the
They bought
agent
it.
has nothing to do with it. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, hey, that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's under contract, no showings, you can't show it, so don't show it, but make sure you ask how you want that. The other thing is too, is you can talk to the seller about how they want it to look, because as Mark mentioned in team meeting, if it's under contract allow showings, that days on market keeps ticking until you close it out. So if you get a contract on something in 2 days and you're trying to keep your numbers under a certain amount of how fast you can get your listings under contract. By putting it under contract to allow showings, that's gonna delay, that's gonna make your numbers a lot higher than you might want them to be. So just double check with the seller. You can't necessarily control that if the seller wants it that way, but just make sure that you talk to them about that. And that'll skew your numbers a little bit. The 24-hour rule for public marketing, clear cooperation is changing a little bit, but for now, it's always been this way since 2019. I think it was November of 2019 when we passed clear cooperation. And basically it just says, anytime you go to publicly market a property, you must have it in the MLS within 24 hours. And again, federal holidays and weekends are excluded. But again, I wouldn't play with that too much. We have agents that will sometimes list a property on a Thursday and not put it in the MLS until Monday because they have Friday and Monday to basically get it in, but they want to do an open house on Sunday. Well, you're really not doing your seller any service by not advertising that property in the MLS, so it goes out and is syndicated to all the websites, especially if you're holding an open house. Buyer agency is now in place. You have to, get a buyer agency agreement signed except for at an open house. So there are chances that you might be able to sell the property. But again, really, you've got to talk to your seller about that, because what are you doing for your seller if you're just trying to get it sold for yourself and not the seller for the best terms for the seller? You're only looking out for yourself, and that's not right.
It's not fiduciary.
Yeah, not a fiduciary.
Question, so say I have a listing that's going live tomorrow, am I allowed to then put the sign in the yard today?
You are allowed to put the sign in the yard today if it's going live tomorrow. I've done it, and I do it because I'm like, okay, I'm leaving the house, I've got all the paperwork signed, I put the lockbox on, and I put the sign out, and I'm driving back to the office or whatever, and I'm gonna put it in later that night or the next day or whatever it is. But because inventory is so low, guaranteed the moment you put the sign in the yard, either one of the neighbors is gonna either call you or call their agent and say, I drove past this house and there's a sign in the yard, and then the agent's gonna call you. Well, you're not allowed to do that. Yes, you are. You just have to have it in the MLS within 24 hours. So you can do that, yes. Yep. And then the MLS classes, I don't know if we have any scheduled, but the MLS classes are really good. If you're not familiar with how to use the MLS, or you want to look at some of their tools, they will have people that will come around to our office and schedule a whole class just like this, or you can do online classes. I think that they hold at MLS now, or drive up to Independence where they can hold classes too. If there's enough of us, we can have somebody that will come, and I think Ashley, you can get it scheduled with whoever the representative is.
I sure can.
So, yeah, good stuff. Temporarily off market, that's what that TOMK means, and the BOM is back on market date. So if you are doing a temporarily off market, which doesn't happen terribly often, but let's say something happens and the seller says, oh, I had a death in the family, I need to take my house off the market for 2 weeks because I'm gonna be out of town, or I've got people coming into town and they're gonna be staying with me. I don't want my house shown then, and I don't want to deal with this. Then you can temporarily take it off the market using a status form change that we have available in the MLS, in .loop rather, under MLS interactive documents, and it would be temporarily off the market. But what you have to know is the back on market date. So if I'm taking the house off the market today and it's coming back on the market on April 20th, then I have to put in the broker remarks BOM April 20th. So the agents know it's coming back on the market. Now I get asked this question on a regular basis. Well, what happens if the seller wants to put it back on the market on the 18th because everything is done and not the 20th? I caution you to do that. I'm not saying you can't do that, but I caution you simply because you're the only one that's gonna know that that property is going active on the 18th. And it's gonna look very suspicious if all of a sudden you get an offer on that house on the 18th, you put it back on the market and change the date on the 18th. And nobody else had the opportunity, because there might be another agent out there waiting for the 20th so they can show it. So just be real careful with that. Talk to your seller about that. If you have to move it up, you have to move it up. And if you have to push it back, you can push it back. Always get an edit status change form signed anytime you're changing anything on a listing.
Is there like a limit time or a time limit to where?
I would say if you're taking something off the market for more than 30 days, there's no reason to use temporarily off the market. There really, I would just withdraw the listing without release. And then you would have to withdraw with release before you put it back on the market. I have not seen anybody do it for longer than 30 days, really. I suppose you could, but I don't know what the purpose would be. So, yeah, I've not heard of a time frame.
When does the continuous days on market
45 days is what I was told by the MLS. So if you list something and it comes off the market for 45 days, the days on market reset. Yeah. MLS continued. So this is one thing that the office, we constantly are kind of going after the agents that aren't paying their bills or whatever. It is really hard on the staff, including myself, to follow up with all of you. We have almost 300 agents here. And when you log into the MLS, there is a thing at the top that says your invoice is due. We only have 30 days to pay those invoices. MLS now is $228. It is billed every February and every August. When it's billed, you have 30 days to pay it. We have agents that won't pay it for 30, 40, 50, 60 days, and we're chasing them down. So I would just say, put it in your calendar now as a reminder, February 19th, I have to pay it, or whatever it is, but anytime in February and in August, that's when they get billed, and they only have 30 days to pay them. If you go past the 30-day mark, we're pretty easy to work with. If you can't get it paid in that time frame. But like right now, those that were billed in February, for those agents that have not been able to pay them, as of the 16th, they will remove our entire office from the roster of being able to access MLS now, even for one agent that hasn't paid, because they've been very gracious from February all the way to April 16th to get it paid. So just know that if you can't pay it, you need to reach out to me and let me know. We need to figure out what we can do. Sometimes we'll work with you and we'll pay it on behalf of you if you have a closing coming up or something like that. But it is very important that you make sure you pay those dues, because it affects the entire brokerage, whether you realize it or not. And then the fees are billed monthly to the agent from the office if you're part of Mansfield or Ashland MLS. Or those boards. Now, Ashland and Mansfield have a meeting tomorrow where we're going to vote on merging those two associations together. Hopefully that takes place, and we will be down one MLS, so it'll only be Mansfield, and they are going to start to go to billing the agent directly at some point. So eventually, the office will be out of billing you for MLS if you're a part of any of those other ones, which is going to be really nice. Columbus MLS is another MLS that we are a part of. That's Flex MLS. And those are billed annually, from my understanding. And it's not cheap if you're part of the MLS in Columbus. With your dues and everything, it's over $700 a year. You can join as a secondary member. I don't recommend it if you don't need it. There's no sense in not, or in joining any other MLS if you're not going to use it. The important thing to remember is if you take a listing in Mansfield, Ashland, Columbus, or MLS Now territory, you must enter the listing in those MLSs. So unfortunately, if Scott and Lynette take a listing out of the Columbus market area, because we are a member of that, Scott and Lynette would have to join, or one of them would have to join Columbus MLS and have to put it in that MLS. I have seen where agents in Cincinnati will come up here to Stark County, list a property and put it in the Cincinnati MLS. All of us agents have no access to a Cincinnati MLS because it's 4 hours away and we don't know what we're doing in that part of the state. So it's very disappointing for a seller also, because as an agent in this area, I wouldn't even know that house is for sale. So I'm doing a disservice to the consumer. So please make sure that you're putting it in the correct MLS, whatever territory you're in.
Are we part of Firelands?
We are part of Firelands. We only have a few agents that are part of Firelands. Firelands is 5 counties towards our northwest, and so they have a pretty large area, but we only have a few agents that are part of that, and they bill directly.
And it used to be we couldn't get paid if the brokerage wasn't part of those.
Yeah.
But that's changed since the new rules, correct?
Yeah, it's all about buyer agency now. So the MLS is no longer the contract in order for agents to get paid. So if you are selling a property in that area, so let's say it's listed in Columbus and you're not a member of that MLS, but you sell a property there, you still use the buyer broker compensation agreement and you're still going to get paid. I don't recommend going outside of the area in which you have primary knowledge of, though. I mean, I had an agent, I really can't remember who it was, if it was a newer agent or existing agent, said, would we ever have access to the Cincinnati or Dayton MLS? The answer is no. I mean, unless we do a statewide MLS, or there goes to like 3 MLSs and Legacy expands into those areas, we would never join that, because we really have no business. As a broker, I have no idea what the point of sales are in Cincinnati or Dayton area. I have no idea what the customs are in those areas for real estate transfers. I don't know title companies. I don't know the agents. They don't know me. And I just don't know the market it would be very foolish for me to sell in that market. Even if it's your best friend or whatever, you don't have access to all the information and data, you're really doing a disservice to your client. So sell in the areas that you know. Supra Access, you should all have the Supra e-key downloaded on your phone. It's an app. Whether you use it or not is irrelevant. It does update. It's supposed to update once a day if you open it. If it doesn't, it updates once a month whenever you open it. The MLS can help you, but also the local board, the association can help you with that. It's very important, in my opinion, that you use those on your listings. I know that a lot of agents don't like to use it because they think it's more of a pain in the rump, but I use it on mine because I look at it this way. If I'm ever in a case where somebody broke into a lockbox, a combination lockbox, or an agent left the combination on it, and all somebody had to do was go up and open it, I just opened that entire house up of my clients. So I envision myself sitting in front of the superintendent of real estate, and for her to say to me, you know, you had another option. You had a secure box and you had a $25 box that had the combination on it. Why did you choose to represent your seller with a cheaper box that anybody could get into? And I'm not gonna have a good answer for it other than I was lazy. So I always recommend the Supra box. Yes, it is true that you need Bluetooth connectivity, but you don't need internet. So as long as you updated it where you have internet, whenever you get to the house, whether you have internet service or not, it's Bluetooth connectivity. It is not the internet, so you can always open that box. I know sometimes people have trouble with them or whatever, but I think it's just because we don't use them enough. People are unfamiliar with how to use them.
Where do you get them from?
So you can purchase them from the board. I think that we have some. I honestly would tell you, if you are not a member of the Stark County Facebook page for real estate professionals, I would join that and I would get on there and just ask if anybody's selling them. For example, I have like 12 of them. I'm never going to use 12 of them. I've already worked it out with some other agents. I'm going to work with them to give them to them. You do have to get them transferred at the board. So if you purchase them, let's say you go on there and somebody says $40 for 3 of these or whatever it costs. They sell them to you. You have to take them to the Star board and have them transferred into your name under that number. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to open them and they're still going to register that other person. But those lock boxes brand new are like $110. They're not cheap, but you can get them through most agents that are either retiring, getting out of the business, or just don't want them. Pretty cheap usually on there. Yeah,
I paid $25 for mine from another agent.
there you go.
Good.
Yeah. 25 bucks. Yeah. Yeah. I think the average agent price sells them for like 20 bucks.
Right.
It's really not that expensive. The batteries last for a long time. If the battery goes dead, they'll give you a new box. I mean, it's pretty good. So I've only had to see them get cut off of a listing once.
And you can give one-time codes to people who maybe don't have it.
Yeah.
Cause sometimes we get people from north that or somewhere where they use Sentry Lock.
Yeah.
And it's easy to give them a one-time code and they can get in.
But even somebody that has Super in a different area that may not connect with ours, you can give them a one-time code and they're able to get in. Yeah. And it's nice because the box emails you when it's opened. It also has a record of the company and the time and the person that went into the property. So it's really secure. So that'd be my recommendation. Photo count in the MLS, you must have at least one exterior front photo of a listing. If it's vacant land, they don't require it. But if it's commercial, residential, multifamily, you have to have at least one photo of the front exterior of the property. And you can take the listing without it, but you have 48 hours to get it in and they will fine you if you don't.
Now, there is an exception, I think, for Amish, correct? Because I see no photo, they've opted out.
There is a photo opt out in MLS now. Yes, if they want to opt out of all photos altogether, there is an opt out for that.
And maybe it's just that it's usually.
Yeah, we don't usually see that too much, but maybe if the Amish say, I don't want any photos in there. The thing you have to remember too with the photos is your real estate sign cannot be in the photo and no people can be in the photos. So that's the other thing too, is if your real estate sign is in the exterior shot of the house, they will flag it and ask you to remove it. And if there are people in it, they will ask you to remove those. I've not seen them ask for animals, but try not to have animals or people in your photos. So. Yeah. And then you can't advertise your services as free. This has kind of gone away with buyer agency, but before that, what led up to this buyer agency, part of it was we had agents that were saying, oh, use my services as a buyer's agent, I'm free. Well, you weren't really free, you were getting paid from the listing brokerage. And so unfortunately, it was a misrepresentation of the public. So do not ever say your services are free. I get the question, can I ask or can I offer a comparative market analysis for free? Yes, you can. People have said, can I charge for a comparative market analysis? Yes, you can, but the other 1,400 members of the STAR board are gonna offer it for free. So if you wanna charge for it, it's kind of crazy, but you can, if you wanted to, charge for a CMA. That's the only thing you can advertise as free, because it is a free service that you're providing. The other thing would be, if you're trying to help somebody get their taxes lower, you could say, I'll offer you free help, give you a free report on the market so that you might be able to reduce your taxes. I would stay away from the word free altogether, but those are the questions I get, and you legally could offer both of those services for free, but I would not say they're free. I would just say, ask me about whatever it is that you're offering. Okay. You may want to take a photo of this and keep it in your phone, because if you do a HUD deal, we have a NAID number, you're going to need this number in order to bid on a HUD loan. The other thing I will tell you is, now that we're starting to see a little bit of foreclosures pop up, they will list the properties on their site. They're oftentimes listed in the MLS as well. But you cannot make an offer on a property unless you have emailed me and asked me to add you to our HUD list. If you're not gonna work with consumers that are looking at foreclosures or investors, then you don't have to worry about it. But what I don't wanna see is, and I fear that it happens, I've gotten emails or text message at 8, 9 o'clock at night saying I'm trying to do a HUD deal and I'm not registered with Keller Williams. Well, if I'm available, I will add you as quickly as I can, but I also can't promise you that I'm gonna be able to add you at 9 o'clock when the offer expires at at midnight. Because a lot of those on the HUD site, you only have until midnight on a certain day to make an offer. And eventually you're gonna get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, it's the last day and I need to make this offer and I need to be in there. So, be prepared for your clients. Don't wait till the last minute to get added to our site. I'm not going through and adding all 300 agents to that site, because we have agents that come, we have agents that leave, we have agents that won't use it. So we do not add every single agent to that site. It's very time consuming and we'd have to monitor it. But that's what you would need for a HUD deal. Our office license number is what is on file with the state, with the Division of Real Estate. We have to renew that every year. Our employer identification number you see there. And then we have our MLS Now broker IDs. Most of you are all under the C75759. However, we also do have one for Worcester, Mansfield, and New Philly. That is not required. We did that because those agents that are in New Philly, when they're in the MLS or when an agent looks in the MLS, they may not want to see that there's a Canton mailing address. They may not want to see that it's a Worcester mailing address. You want to be local in the real estate market that you sell in, and so therefore we've created those other IDs for you to use. Again, all of you most likely are in the Canton one, but some of you, I think, like Mary Dion, I saw that name today and I see she's on. She was actually out of the Elyria office, I believe. We are no longer, the Elyria office is closing. That was a mega agent office. It was not one of our own offices. So they will be transferred to the Worcester office. So that one will be going away. Okay. And all this information is under .loop under office info. So if you didn't take a picture of it or you can't remember to find it, it is all under .loop under office info. But I get these questions on a regular basis, so I'm trying to lead you to where that information is at. And then if you've ever heard of your NERDS number, that is the National Realtor Database System. It's also called an M1 number. In 2022, they got away from NERDS, but it's interchangeable. You all have your own ID number for that. So if you sign up for continuing education classes through NAR, you need that NERDS number. You can find it very easily online. It usually starts with a 6-7 number. Okay. Commissions. So I have heard agents that will go out on appointments and a seller might say, well, what's the average commission? And I've heard agents say, well, the average commission in our area is X%. That is 100% illegal. You cannot say what another brokerage will charge. You cannot say a general statement of, well, I usually see 6% is getting paid or 5% or whatever it is. You cannot answer those questions. What you can say when somebody asks you, what is the commission or what is the average commission, you can say, I'm unfamiliar with what an average commission is or what other brokerages charge. I can tell you what I charge at Keller Williams Legacy Group. So you can't answer that in a direct way without violating the antitrust rules. But you would never answer for another brokerage. So if they said, well, Howard Hanna offered it to me for X% or whatever, is that normal? I don't know. I don't work at Howard Hanna. I'm not sure. So just make sure you never have conversations about that. The other thing that is true as well is if you are in a group setting, so if you're out to lunch with other agents from different brokerages, you can never talk about commission. You can't say, oh, well, I typically charge this, and the other agent says, oh, I typically charge that. That could be looked at as price fixing between brokerages. So you never talk about the commission, only with the consumer, and it's always negotiable. And then, in order to get paid, very important, you have to do your command commission request. When you get a deal under contract, whether it's your listing or your sale, I'm sure Amanda has worked with everybody, or your admins know how to submit the command commission request. When you do that, you can do that at any point in time. You can do it when you get the sales paperwork fully executed. You can wait 2 weeks, but it must be done before closing. If it's not done before closing and we end up with a check sitting in the office, unfortunately, that means we have not checked your compliance, which means you may have signatures missing or documents missing that are required for compliance. We are not going to pay you until you actually have those documents. Now, that means you are going to have to go back to your client and say, oh, I forgot to get this signed. Will you please sign it? Now, there are instances where we might waive something. So if some situation happens that you had no control over, and let's say it's somebody that was moving to Greece and they aren't going to be available to sign anything electronically, they only did things in person, they're elderly, and the deal is closed, they're gone, let us know. We need to note the file that we tried to get that signed, and we will still try to get you paid. But if you don't do the command commission request, you're not getting paid. And that led to the compliance. The $295 additional commission fee, you're gonna see that there are blanks on most all of our documents. There's blanks on the buyer broker compensation agreement. There are blanks on the buyer agency agreement and on our listing agreement. All of those blanks are there. You have to fill in the $295. So wherever it says blank percent commission and, or blank commission and blank percent, the $295 is what goes in that blank. After that, it is up to you what you negotiate. But for those teams or groups that charge more than $295, then you would put $495 in that blank, or $395, whatever it is that you charge. It is called additional commission simply because that is 100% negotiable. We don't call it an admin fee. We don't call it an administrative fee. We don't call it a flat brokerage fee. Don't use any of those terms in your marketing or anywhere on your paperwork, because that is not true. It is a commission, and the commission is split between the brokerage and the agent. The seller does not need to know what that split is. And a lot of times agents are like, well, I don't get the full $295, or I don't get the full $395, or whatever the case is. That's true, but you also don't get the full 3% that you're charging either, and you've never worried about that. So make it known that the seller does not need to know what your split is with the brokerage. It usually doesn't even get discussed.
I have a question in regards to that. So say you have like a transaction coordinator, could you, as like a solo agent, increase the $295 to whatever your TC is being paid, so that it's not coming completely out of your commission, it's also coming out of that?
Yeah, I mean, if you have an admin and you are trying to fund the admin through your fee that you're charging, and let's say you're charging $495, then $495 would go in there, whether you're a team, group, or an individual agent. Just know the minimum is $295. That you have to do. The others can be sorted out in command. So, because that's where your command commission request is, yeah.
Got it.
We still do not have to charge the VA, is that correct? Even though they are allowed to pay now, our policy is, we don't have to, but we can.
Right, yeah, and I think we made that decision because our veterans have served our country. It was always one of those where in previous years, the law stipulated that a VA buyer cannot pay for their pest inspection. Why, I don't know, that weird one, but they couldn't pay for the pest inspection. And they also were not allowed to pay any additional commission charge or admin fees or anything else that a brokerage would call it. They were considered a junk fee. And so the VA said you can't do that. Because of buyer agency, you are now allowed to charge the consumer, a veteran buyer, or seller the admin fee, if that's what, like I said, you wouldn't call it that, but whatever it is that a brokerage is calling an additional commission admin fee, you can now charge that. They don't consider it a junk fee. We have taken the stance to say, no, that's a benefit to the veteran. We don't need that $295. You can waive that. The same is true too, if you're working with an investor or a client that, let's say, for example, they buy 2 houses with you in the same calendar year. So it goes by January to December, you can waive the 3rd, 4th, 5th one on that in that calendar year. So, oftentimes we have somebody that maybe sells their house with us and then buys a house with us. Well, they're going to pay the $295 on both of those, but anything in addition to that, if they buy a rental property or their parents' property, we would waive that. You have to make the note of that in command when you're doing your commission request, otherwise we don't know that. We don't keep a record of it. Same thing is true for the VA, so that we don't take that $295 out of your commission, make sure you make a note of it, and so that Cassandra or Nicole can see it.
So I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So, right now I have a listing for my sellers who just bought a house as well. So for the listing, we could waive that $295?
No,
Is that-
because they purchased, that's one. The listing would be two. They have
Oh,
to pay
after
it
two.
twice, it's
Okay.
after two.
Okay.
Yep, in the same calendar year.
Gotcha.
Showing time, I'll go through this a little bit quicker, but basically, you pay $7.50 per month for your showing time. That gives you full access to showing time. I would say if you haven't been in showing time in a while, log into the desktop version or download the app if you don't have it on your phone. Play around in there. There is a lot of great features that it offers. You can try and get price reductions with your sellers by using that tool that shows how many showings were on a property in a certain price range. How long a property took to sell based in that price range and different things like that. I've used it to get price reductions because I've had sellers that are like, well, my house isn't being shown. Well, none of the houses in this price range in this township are being shown. There are no buyers looking in this $500,000 price range in this area. But if you are in the 450 to 475, that's where we're seeing showing. So if you can use that information to help leverage the prices and hopefully get a price reduction so you can get the property sold. But the clients, when you set that up, your clients can get a text, an email, or a phone call for the showing. That leaves you available to do whatever it is that you're doing throughout your day. So like I set up my listings to where my sellers have said, hey, I want text message to approve the showing. Great. I don't need to know about the showing until it's already set up. So I just put in showing time, you're gonna text the seller when it's approved, I get an email saying that it was approved. If it gets declined, I get an email saying it was declined. But I don't want to do anything with that and take up my time while I'm out here trying to do other things. Let showing time do all that for you. All right, and then this is a very important slide for who signs a listing or a purchase agreement. I've modified this a little bit, but to say, on a listing, if there's a person that is not married and you have a single person, that's all that needs to sign the listing agreement. That's totally fine. If you have a married party, I don't care if they've been married for 23 years and haven't lived in the same house for 19 years. They don't even know where their spouse is. And you might laugh at that, but that is honestly, I've had those situations and I know other agents have too. You still need the other spouse's signature. You absolutely, whether it is a male-male relationship, female-female, female-male, it does not matter if they are married. You have to have all the owner's signatures. Ohio has dower rights, and so if you only get one signature, which I've seen agents do, they don't even ask the question if the person's married because they look on the auditor's site and see it's only in the name of one person. They meet with that person, get the listing procured, put it online, get a sales contract, and then all of a sudden we get into the deal and the seller finally says, oh, by the way, I'm married to the title company. And we don't even have a legal listing agreement or a legal purchase agreement because the other party hasn't signed it. And it's come down to where that other party will say, I'm not selling the house for that. I didn't even know the person was selling it. So you have to be very careful, and you and us can get sued for marketing a property that you cannot sell. So don't do that. Make sure you understand who the seller is. I am really surprised, and I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but I'm really surprised that we don't have to ask for an ID when we go out on a listing appointment, because I could go out to a listing appointment and meet with maybe a seller that doesn't even own the house. They could be tenants and say that they're the owners of the property. I have no idea. I get their signatures on something, trusting that they're whoever they claim to be, and then I go ahead and list the property for sale. So I think there's going to become a day with all the fraud and the different things that if we don't, it is not required, it's not a bad idea for you to check that and ask for an ID. But it's not required. And then a trust or an estate or a power of attorney. If you don't have the documentation to say that who is in the trust is a trustee that's able to sign for real estate purposes, you shouldn't be listing the property. If it's an estate sale and you don't have a piece of paper from the court that says that this person was the executor or this person is the administrator approved by the court, you shouldn't be listing the property. If you don't have a power of attorney that you see that it covers real estate matters, you cannot use that power of attorney. Sometimes people think they have power of attorney when it's in fact medical power of attorney that they have and not necessarily power of attorney over real estate matters. If it's an estate or a trust, it might require 2 trustees' signatures in order to deal with real estate. You never know. So get a copy of the documents. You are going to need them.
The other one I would add to that is LLCs.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you deal a lot with investors, we need their documents or articles to show can sign.
Yeah, that's a good one. I will add that. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, the LLC, same thing. If you don't, if the property's in the name of an LLC, you need the LLC operating agreement because the title company is going to need it anyway, but you need to know, okay, maybe it's 2 partners, maybe it's 3 partners, maybe it's 4. Maybe I need 1 signature and they're all allowed to sell the property. Maybe I need all 4 signatures of those people. I don't know. So you have to get a copy of those documents. Very, very, very important. And then for a purchase agreement, it's a little bit different if somebody's married. You need to talk to the lender because sometimes the lender says, you know what, the missus is a stay-at-home mom. She doesn't have the credit or the income to be on the loan. It's only the husband that needs to be on there, or it could be swapped. He is a stay-at-home dad. He doesn't, have the income, but the mom is making the money or the wife is making the money. So ask the lender who needs to be on the loan. If you just put both of them on the purchase agreement, sometimes you have to do an addendum to remove a person because you put them on. So talk to the lender and understand who your client is and who needs to be on there. The same thing is true with the trust, the estate, or power of attorney, is get the documents. And then divorce situations, there are often times where, 2 people are getting a divorce and they say, well, I want to go ahead and buy a house, but I don't want my spouse to know about it. They should seek legal counsel because of dower rights. The moment you close on a property, whether it's only in one person's name or not, it only takes 1 person to buy, but that other party that they didn't want to know now has dower interest in that property. Unless they are signing off of dower at closing. Sometimes you have an amicable divorce and they say, yes, I understand that, I'm buying the property, but my spouse or soon to be ex-spouse has signed over at closing the dower. So you're okay there. But please make sure you know that, because I've seen agents get their clients into trouble where they buy a house and think that it doesn't become a marital asset. It is. An escrow letter, we have, you would do one on every single transaction. This goes to the title company. So whatever title company you're working with, you're gonna do an escrow letter. It basically just has the buyer's information or seller's contact information, mostly both. Whatever commission amount and who's paying the commission amount. If there's a home warranty, who's paying for the home warranty, who the home warranty company is. If the seller's paying any of the closing costs, or if there is an inspection invoice that needs paid at closing because it wasn't paid up front. We don't really see that too much anymore, but I can tell you there was a time in real estate where, back in the older days, as soon as a pest inspection, as soon as you procured a purchase agreement, the pest inspection was ordered and an invoice was sent and it got paid at closing. So that was normal. We don't see that too much anymore. You should never be choosing the inspection companies, by the way, for your clients. You always let them choose. If you give inspector names, home inspector names, you must give at least 3 names. If you give less than 3, you're breaking the rules, but you also don't have to give any. We do have a form in .loop that has disclosures on it that are from the state of Ohio. I highly recommend that you use that form. It has 5 blanks. You can put in as many home inspectors or general inspectors or septic and well inspectors as you want on there. You can modify it, there's only 6 or 5 slots, I think, but you can duplicate them or whatever you have to do. That is the best form to use to keep yourself out of trouble. And then the co-broke agent information would be on the escrow letter, the closing date, and any lender information. Choosing a title company, we always hear this, it's so funny because different areas. We always hear different areas or say, well, the seller gets to choose the title company. Oh no, the buyer gets to choose the title company. Well, the answer is none of that is true. It may be normal in that area as a customary practice that maybe in Southern Ohio, the seller gets to choose it, or Northern Ohio, the buyer gets to choose it. It is up to the seller and the buyer. It is not up to you as the agent. You can recommend a title company. Don't fight over a title company and lose a transaction. It's not worth it. It just is not worth it. You will typically lose the transaction and then your seller or buyer is going to be very upset because you were fighting over something that was not relevant to them. But the answer is, if a seller is paying the buyer's closing costs, so let's say, for example, Scott brings me an offer and he's saying, I want $6,000 towards my buyer's closing costs. The most expensive thing in a title situation is the title insurance. And that $6,000 is probably going to cover all of the title insurance. So if I'm the one paying all the title fees, my side and the buyer side, I get to choose what title company I'm using because I'm the one paying for it. I'm not going to let the buyer choose and end up paying an absorbent amount for something that they get to choose. I get to choose my own. But otherwise, it's negotiable. Let it be negotiable. Home warranty, we talked a little bit about that. the home warranty contract, either the contract or the waiver is required as part of your compliance. I know it's in the purchase agreement too, but it's there because a lot of times agents make decisions for their clients. And in a purchase agreement, you might just go, oh, this is a $400,000 house. They have the money if something happens to it. No, they don't want one. So you don't even offer it to them. You need to make sure that you're offering the same services to every single client. That's why we require the warranty contract waiver or acceptance. Also, if you, for some reason, get sued on that transaction and we have the warranty contract accepted or waived, America's Preferred Home Warranty will pay half of your deductible. Your deductible is $5,000 if you get sued. So if we get sued on because of something that you may or may not have done, and we have to turn into E&O insurance, you have to give us $5,000 in order to start that claim. If you don't have it, we'll pay it and you're gonna owe it back to us, because that is your requirement. America's Preferred will pay half of that, so you can really cut your chances in half of getting sued by doing everything right, but then also getting that signed. So that's why we require it. And then filling out a data collection sheet, I think that Tywayne has coming up a class. I don't think you have to fill out the sheet anymore. You can go online, there's some different ways to do it, but you can still get paid the $100 from America's Preferred Home Warranty. And how you get that is by doing your job, which is either filling out the data collection sheet or following how to register that. You have to follow that, otherwise you're not getting it. It's illegal for them to give us a $100 check in order just to sell the warranty. That's illegal. Okay, but to follow the requirements that they provide, then you can get paid. And it gets paid to the brokerage and then we pay it out to you. Consumer guide agents need to make sure that they're getting consumer guide and buyer agency agreements signed the very first time that they meet with a client, or it could be before they meet with a client. You start talking about financing, or you talk about anything that's a confidential, private information about what they're looking for in a home, you're working with them. So that's why you'll see here, I have working must be signed before working with a client. You can look up what working with a client means, and that's simply, if I start talking to Ashley about what she can afford, then I need to, before that, have the consumer guide signed and a buyer agency agreement. I know most agents don't do that, but I'm just telling you that is what the rule is. Before you work with a client, you need to have both of these signed. What I usually do for my consumer guides, I used to have a folder in my car and that's where I put them and I held on to them for 3 years and then I would throw them away. What I have done instead of that now is instead of holding onto a folder, I bring that signed agency disclosure back, or I'm sorry, consumer guide back. I upload it into my consumer guide file that I have in .loop and I just put the client's name on and date. So I have it for the rest of all time. It's electronically, and then I put the other one, the paper one they signed in the shred box. I don't need that.
Question, Rich, I noticed, and it's because the buyer agency agreement, it's so fresh, it's newer, you know. There's a lot of repetitiveness, like the fair housing statement, I think confidentiality, conversation, some of those things. Is there any thought that some of that will kind of come together so that there isn't so much repetitiveness?
It would be great if it did. I think right now what's happening is NAR and Ohio realtors, I mean, anybody, any realtor right now in agency. NAR is making rules to deal with things as we go. The problem is they're not looking at the whole picture. They're being very reactionary. And in some cases, they're not being as reactionary. They're trying to be precautious, but it's not working out because the consumer guide does have all the same information mostly about how we work with consumers. The agency disclosure has it. The fair housing statement has to be on everything. It's on all of our documents and it's legally required. But yes, I mean, wouldn't it make sense to have a written buyer agency agreement that also incorporates the consumer guide? Sure, so you're getting one thing signed. Unfortunately, that is not how Ohio law reads.
So the consumer guide is the Ohio.
The consumer guide is Ohio, but so is the buyer agency.
But that's also NAR wants buyer agency.
NAR, yes, but the difference is NAR only controls realtors.
Okay.
We don't have just realtors. We have licensees that are not members of NAR or a local board, and then we have realtors. Realtors are a member of National Association of Realtors. Almost all of our brokerages around here are realtors. We don't see that so much, but like down in Florida, there are agents that are just licensed that they're not part of NAR. They're not a realtor. They can't use the word realtor. It's a registered trademark. So unfortunately, I won't say unfortunately. Fortunately, what Ohio realtors did is they worked with our legislators to say, hey, let's make sure that even though NAR says all realtors have to work using a buyer agency agreement, we want to make all licensees work with that. Because what would happen is you would find brokerages in Ohio that would say, oh, I no longer want to be a member of NAR. And they would be exempt from having those signed, whereas then we, as a Realtor member, it's a disservice, it's a disadvantage. So now it's a level playing field in the state of Ohio. It could be different in other states, but that's how it is in Ohio.
So if I wanted to put the effort at the Ohio level to try and see if they could add the consumer guide language to it, then it would be.
It's gonna be working with the legislators, so I would say, yeah, work with Veronica or somebody, it's gonna be working with the legislators because it's Ohio Revised Code.
Yeah,
It's not the Division of Real Estate, it's Ohio Revised Code that tells us what we have to do there. So yes, you would have to.
might have to take that up someday.
Yep. So there you go, that's good. And the consumer guide and buyer agency is assigned per client, not the number of houses that you show.
Okay.
Showing a house, you know, it seems maybe foolish to share with you what it means to show a house, but I think it's very important that you pay attention to the broker remarks or the showing time remarks. Because there are many times where, you know, things might say, or the remarks might say, there is a pet in the basement in a cage. And it may surprise you, you may not read that, and then you go downstairs and there's a dog barking at you and you don't realize it's in a cage, and you don't go to the basement and show it because you hear barking. It could be that you lock a seller out of a house, because I can't tell you how many sellers don't have keys to their houses anymore. They use the garage door opener and that's it. Or they just have never had a key and they never changed the locks on the house and they weren't worried about it. So they say, I'll leave the front door unlocked. Well, if you lock the front door after they told you not to lock the front door, you have potentially just harmed the seller for all the showings that are gonna back up for the rest of the day. So pay attention to what they say, be on time, be courteous, leave a card so the seller knows that you were there. If you're going to be 15 minutes past the window that you set up, you need to text that agent or call that agent and get permission to go in the house after the time that you had set up. A lot of agents just think, oh, it's no big deal, I'm behind on showings, I'll just go. I've seen agents be behind as much as an hour on a showing and just show up at a house. And here the family is, they're bathing their child or cooking dinner and they're mad because now there's a person walking in their front door that was not authorized during that time. So make sure you're paying attention to those types of things. And then, you know, sometimes you have to leave lights on, sometimes you don't have to leave lights on, it just depends. I always say give feedback. You need to give feedback. There are plenty of agents that don't, and I'll tell you, you get really annoyed for those agents that don't. It is 30 seconds of your day to respond at the end of the day. I don't care if you do it when you crawl in bed at night, and it's the last thing you do for the day after showing houses all day. Get the feedback within 24 hours. It's very important, and you're gonna want that someday on your own listing. It's very smart to do. Now, I will say NAR has come up with a thing to where, and some attorneys have said, well, you shouldn't be giving feedback on showings because that can harm the sellers, or that can harm your buyer's offer, because an agent goes and gives feedback that they really didn't like the property, or they didn't like the tub that's pink or purple or whatever it is. And then unfortunately they make an offer and the seller's like, well, those are the people that didn't like my house, or they didn't like this, I don't wanna help them. So you have to be careful with your feedback, but it is important to give feedback.
That's actually my practice, Rich, is if my people haven't made a decision yet.
Yeah.
I may call that agent and say, look,
Sure.
I'm not leaving feedback yet because they're mulling an offer. And I'm not gonna put anything negative.
Yeah.
If that's the case, cause that's the fiduciary.
As long as you're getting feedback to them, whether it's
Yeah.
by phone, text, through showing time, through the super app, I don't care.
I just wanna
It's
get
just a
details.
courtesy.
Yeah.
I never realized how bad that was, like, with people not giving feedback. I had my first listing ever, and I've had like 7 showings on it, and not a single feedback has been given to me, and I have texted even, and I'm like agents have even called me before the showing, asking
Of
questions.
course they do.
I'm like, yeah, great, please provide feedback afterwards, let me know if you have any questions, nothing, and I'm like, what the heck?
So what I do, and it's probably very annoying, but you can go into your settings and showing
It
time,
automatically sets.
and it will automatically send the feedback
Every day.
request. I have it up to the maximum, which is 5 times. So it gets sent to them 5 times over a period of like a week, and I think it's funny because eventually, even after my listings have gone under contract, I will eventually get feedback because they're tired of getting those,
Right.
but I do it on purpose because if they can't call me, and now I would go in and remove it if they called me and said, this is the feedback, as long as I got feedback.
Mhm.
Give me feedback,
Right.
cause it looks inept for us too, as the listing agent.
And I wanna go back one more to that slide when showing, because we've seen so many back to back to back showings. Either put the keys back in, don't let the other agent have it, or see their ID, or make sure you know them, that they are an agent. I had somebody walking through a house while I was there, they had no agent, they just thought it was an open house.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And I'm like, no,
yeah, I mean, I did skip over that, but it is one that's in here.
it's just a
You,
risk.
you need to make sure you're putting the key back in the lockbox when you're done with your showing and not just handing it. Now, I say that, and I have also, like, if I see Scott walking up or Lynette or Ashley, I might go, okay, here's the key, make sure you lock up. Now, here's the thing about doing that. I do not know that Scott or Ashley's license is active. I don't know, because maybe their birthday just happened and they forgot to renew their license and I just handed a key to an unlicensed person, even though I know that. Because it happens, so it is dangerous to give a key or leave a house open even for an agent that you know on a regular basis, because you're taking the risk that they or their clients are not leaving a door unlocked or a window open or a door open or letting an animal out or something like that. So it is very important. I know I've had agents that I don't know get irritated because they're like, why are you locking that up? I'm right here. Because it's a Supra and I'm locking it saying that I left the house in locked condition. That's
Supras
why.
especially so.
Yeah. So it is important that you do that. It's a little irritating to some agents, but they'll get over it. You're doing your job and that's all that matters. All right, and then working with agents, I think the biggest thing here is, and I'm gonna wrap up because I do have to get to Akron, is working with agents, be courteous. If you have any longevity in this business, you do have to worry about what other agents think of you, because when you're on the opposite side of that, when you get when they have a listing and you are the buyer as agent and you submit an offer to them, I can tell you honestly, there have been times where sellers will ask a question, well, have you worked with these agents before? Agents will give honest feedback. Yes, I've worked with these agents before. I'm in multiple offers. This agent's the easiest one to work with. Or this agent is the most professional or whatever. You try not to say those things, but you're not saying anything bad when the seller asks you that question. But I can tell you right now, I could probably list on two hands agents I never want to work with again in my entire life, and I hope to God they never write on my listings because I don't want to deal with them. They're just ridiculous to deal with and very difficult. You are not going into this winning by being mean to the other agent or winning because you beat the other person up. Or I think the biggest thing is, demeaning an agent because you see that their license they got in 2021 and you've been licensed since 2000. Well, I see you're a new agent, or this is how I do it. It's just demeaning and there's no reason to do it. You can be courteous and say, well, this is the way that I typically do it, or this is the way it's done, I'm just helping you out. But to be demeaning to another agent is not fun. So that's why they got rid of the license number, by the way. The first 4 digits in the license number now, it doesn't have the year anymore. Because people were being rude to agents that were getting their license later in years. So
I actually did have that happen to me when I first got licensed. It was like, "Oh, you're brand new," and I'm like, I'm so excited to learn from you because like I can't handle like the rudeness of people, and I'm just like, well, great, maybe you're gonna teach me some things. And it kind of like changed their demeanor a little bit because they went more of a "Oh, you know nothing" to "Oh, I can
let
teach
me
you
help
something."
yes.
So that kind of helped, but
And
Yeah.
the other thing is too, is if you are a newer agent, just because an older agent tells you that this is the way we do things, does not mean it's right. So be careful with that. If you have questions, call me, but if you're a newer agent and you know that you're right, chances are you are right, and it's the other agent that's been in this business for 20 years that is just doing something they're used to doing, but is not allowed. So don't second guess yourself all the time. And know when to call versus text. Texting has its place, but you need to hear the inflection in my voice when I'm talking to you. A text just comes across sometimes very rude. And you're in a hurry. You just text something and it comes across rude. So call, communicate, super important. Earnest money, cash is never acceptable for earnest money. We do not hold earnest money here at Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty. Some of the other brokerages may, we do not. Actually, I don't think in all 4 of the brokerages, we don't now. But personal check is acceptable to the title company up to $10,000, so $9,999.99. And then a cashier's check is acceptable up to $10,000, but a wire is really the most preferred method. They can go onto like ATS's website or any other website and they can electronically give the money. You really don't want to be involved with getting and collecting the earnest money. You just want to make sure it was collected. That means the title company should be sending you something saying it's collected. And you'll see in our purchase agreement, we now have in there that earnest money must be deposited within 72 hours. It doesn't say 72 business hours, it's 72 hours. And I don't care if the person's in California or Alaska, they can go online and get a deposit. There's really no reason that they can't. Okay. And then we talk about who's holding the earnest money, who collects it. Again, if your buyer has a check and you go collect it, great. Get it to the title company as fast as you can. You can get your license suspended or even completely revoked if you hold on to an earnest money check and just forget to take it to the title company and you get all the way to the closing table. That is misappropriation of funds and they're not your funds. So please make sure always where the earnest money is and if you get it. If you do get a copy of the check. If my buyer hands me a check, get a copy of the check, send a copy of that check to the title company, send a copy of that check to the other agent and deposit that with the title company. Okay. Now, if the deal falls apart, nobody's getting their earnest money back unless one of a couple things happen. It's either a fully executed mutual release by both parties agreeing where the earnest money goes. If that doesn't happen, then one of the parties can take the other party to court. And if that doesn't happen, after 2 years, the person that deposited their earnest money can get it back after the 2 years from the date that it was deposited. Now, if the title company can't find that person, they have to send it to the state of Ohio in that person's name for unclaimed funds. Then that person will have to figure it out with the state on how to get their funds. All right. And then the last thing I have here is the seller net sheets. I actually just met with an agent that's been in the business for a long time and they are still doing net sheets by hand. You can do that, but I don't recommend it. There is a title capture app and all of our title companies use it. I know ATS uses it. It's the most simple thing. You go to their app or their website and you just type in the address. You type in how much the property taxes are, if the seller has a mortgage on it, all that stuff. It calculates all of it for you and gives you a net sheet. You can email the net sheet, you can print the net sheet, you can edit it. So worth it. And I am baffled by the amount of agents that go out to a listing appointment and do not have a net sheet for their seller before they ever get there, or do it while they're there at the table. I have won more listing appointments just because I had given the seller their total cost to sell and they understand how much it's gonna cost them to sell and they see it in writing, as opposed to agents that go out and don't have it with them. So
It's that right there, the title capture.
the title capture app, yep. If you go to American Title Solutions, their website, you can download it.
I'll say, Sierra, I can also forward you the web.
Perfect. Thank
I
you.
have it on my computer.
Okay, any other questions I didn't cover? I'm sorry, I know I went through that quick. I've got to get Akron, so, but I'm happy to answer questions if you guys do have any, and if not, you can always email me or call me.
I have one question. So I've been in real estate for a couple of years, but I'm still like going at it full time, like trying to get busier. And so, if I'm working with an agent and a different brokerage who I know who they are, we're trying to get this deal together. What are the, I guess, rules when it comes to talking about the deal, for example, because I won't put who it is, but, I had a buyer who wanted, it was their personal house that they were selling. But they were trying to convince me to have their sellers put in an offer and trying to give me numbers and for the financing and what they would put down and this and that. And so I'm like, I don't know what to tell my buyers.
My suggestion is you're working for who you're
I'm gonna let everybody
representing.
go on Zoom, guys. Have a good day. Thank you.
And so you protect that, but if the other agent gives you information that benefits your buyers, I take all I give, but I give very